All right, well, we're visiting with Bob George from SCORE. What is SCORE? We're going to talk about that here in just a moment. SCORE is our featured member for Discover Thursdays this week. Bob, welcome. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Let's talk about SCORE. You know, everybody has their different version of the American dream, but it often revolves around starting your own business.
Yes.
That's probably the most common thing we hear associated with the American dream. And while at one time let's just say it, at one time that was a lot easier than what it is in 2023 as we
Yes,
sit
it was.
here
It
today. And guidance in starting a business or even operating a business, if you're currently operating one, can be invaluable, but it can also be expensive unless you talk to SCORE. Let's start with the very basics, Bob. What is SCORE and what is the acronym?
SCORE is Service Corps of Retired Executives. That's what it stands for. And it was started in about 76 by a group of retired executives in, excuse me, I think in Virginia or in Washington, D.C., in that area. And they got together. It was under a different name, but it ended up being SCORE. And when I say retired executives, that's what we really need. We need people that have had their own business and have signed a paycheck for the business. So they've gone from the ground up. They've started it and ran it. My background is restaurants and hotels. I started out, I went to college for that at Cornell Hotel School, and then went with a chain restaurant back in the 60s called Stouffer's. Now, right now they're just frozen foods. All the restaurants have disappeared over the years, and you know, that's the way it goes. Chain restaurants have limited at this point to places like Anthony's. That was due to McDonald's and Burger King came along and stopped the 600-seat restaurants from making money.
Business
Yeah,
model
they
completely.
did. It really did. Anyway, from there, I went to Stouffer's, 10 years, learned the business, went to Canada with A&W, worked for them as a food consultant, had restaurants that I was in charge of from Montreal to Vancouver. And then, when we were in Vancouver, that's where the head office was, I decided to go in my own business. I thought, I always wanted to do that. So anyway, had another friend of mine that was with A&W. He was in real estate. I was in operations, so we both became partners. And one thing I should say, always have a partner's agreement. You should do that no matter what kind of business you're in. Have a buy-sell agreement with your partner. It's a good thing to do.
And no matter who your partner is.
That's correct. You know, and we were good friends, and we parted on good friends because we started a smorgasbord that we purchased. I operated it. And after we started making some money, he says, look, why don't we get another restaurant? I said, I'm all for it. So then we bought a steakhouse. And that was running. We always tried to buy restaurants that were open and running. Anyway, he said, well, let me take the smorgasbord and you take the steakhouse. I said, okay, that's a good idea. However, we never looked back at the buy-sell. He went bankrupt. And I ended up having to pay part of it because we never separated, and that was a stupid thing anyway.
Lesson learned, though.
Lesson learned, so you learn all the time. So from there, I had the steakhouse, did very well, sold the steakhouse, bought a church building in North Vancouver, and called it the Black Sheep, and had another restaurant that I ran for about 4 years. Sold that, leased it. It went bankrupt, I took it back. Again, another thing that I'd like to talk about, all businesses, 85% of all businesses go bankrupt within 4 years.
Yeah, you're starting behind the 8 ball.
You bet. So it's a hard thing. Anyway, I took the restaurant back, ran it again for a couple of years, and made fairly good money, nothing great. And a fella came along, wanted to buy it, so he bought it from me, and he was very smart. He tore down the church and put up a 6-story high-rise of condos, and he's still making money.
So obviously a lot of experience, Bob.
Yes.
And as we look across the country, we want to emphasize that SCORE started in the D.C. area. Here we sit in Birch Bay, Washington. Leads me to believe you're coast to coast.
We are. We have 300 branches from in all 50 states. including Alaska. We do a lot of work with Alaska from here. We also have a major center in Seattle. We do webinars almost daily. There's at least 3 a week, and some are very inexpensive, but they can help you with business planning, they can help you with marketing, they can help you with, let me see, finance and accounting, things that I'll forget to mention. But it's really quite helpful for anybody going into business. I didn't have this when I started, and I wish I would have, although I didn't lose money. I did buy one in downtown Robson Square. I lasted there 6 months, bought it for $80,000 and sold it for $20,000, and learned my lesson and stayed out of that. But in any case, then I went and worked for a hotel chain for a while. But it's imperative that you get a background in the business you want to be in. A lot of the people come to us and say, gee, I want to start a business. Well, what do you want to do? I want to open up a restaurant. Have you had any experience? No. Go get it first. It's a good idea, and a lot of people, we tell that. The food truck business is quite popular nowadays, so, and they do well, but it's not cheap to get into, and if you're going to start a business, it's imperative that you have a little of your own cash to go along with it. Not much. I mean, with small business, we are part of small business as SCORE. We came through small business. If people go to small business and they haven't done any business, they send to us.
And that was actually going to be something I was going to say when you talk about the legitimacy of SCORE.
Yes.
It's backed. It was originally backed by the SBA, and
Correct.
It's still backed by the SBA.
Yes,
and
it
that's
is.
about as legitimate as you get.
Yes, it is. And we usually help the person with a good business plan. And when we feel that it's good enough, we'll send them back to a small business, and they will back the loan from a bank. And that's why you come to us, because if you get a backed loan, the bank is pretty well safe. They're only on the hook, say, for 15%, and SCORE will take up the other 85 if something fails. But if you have a good business plan, you're not going to fail.
College education is important, and we're not here to
Not necessarily.
We're not here to discuss the merits of a college education, but I want to talk about the School of Hard Knocks, and that's
Yes.
what it seems to me like SCORE is really all about, is business owners. You've mentioned a couple of times, well, I did this and I learned this lesson.
Yes.
I did this and I learned this lesson.
Correct.
SCORE seems here to say, hey, these are the lessons you're going to learn. Listen to us, and maybe you won't have to go through some of the same bumps we did.
That's what we try and tell people. A lot of people have a hobby that they've been working with, and they think, hey, maybe I can make this into a business. You have to be careful, because a hobby does not make money. A business, you want to make money. So you really got to analyze it and come to us, and we'll go through it with you. A lot of times we'll say to a person, I don't see this making money enough for you to go into. Mm-hmm. And we try and save them money before they even go into business. That's another thing that we do. We've worked with people that were in business. One that I can remember 4 or 5 years ago was a boat company, American Marine. Now, there were 2 partners. They wanted to separate. So rather than go to a lawyer or anything else, they came to us, and one of our volunteers, who's retired now, and he's moved to Wenatchee, he set up with them and did a buy-sell agreement, and it worked. They gave us a grant of $1,000 for doing the work for them, whereas it could have cost them up to $25,000, $30,000 to get it done.
Yeah.
But so we work with people that are in business. We work with people that have a business and want to pivot into something else. We just had one that I met at the Birch Bay luncheon last month. He was in West Side Pizza, but he had a side business. So he contacted us, and Dan Robbins, who's been out here, helped him and told him how to get started, how to separate from a partner, and whether there's enough money in the business to go ahead.
We'd be remiss, Bob, if we didn't go any farther without mentioning this. There are people that have built businesses based on what you just told me, the consulting of businesses, and they make a lot of money doing that. What we haven't touched on yet is SCORE is made up of volunteers. You guys don't get paid anything.
That's correct.
And the services and the consultations that you give are free.
Free, you bet, you bet. In our branch right here, I would say we have over 100 years of experience in business people. We've got one gentleman that does patents and trademarks. The other person I mentioned has had 2 or 3 retail businesses in town, and successful businesses. I've had restaurants and worked in hotels, so I've got that background. But even with that background, I can talk to anybody that comes in, and I'll find something. And what we say, we are one score. If you come in and you have a candlestick business, I know nothing about it, but I know the profit and loss part of it. I'll get started with you, but I'll find somebody that's done a candlestick business within the 50 states, and I'll put you in touch with them.
We've talked a lot about what SCORE does and what Bob and all the volunteers do as a part of SCORE. We haven't talked about why you do it. Why do you do it?
Well, we're giving back. You know, we've learned that you need good small business to make this country grow. And, you know, small business is about 60 to 80% of businesses. Even with, you know, large corporations, the small business is the backbone of the country. And we're just trying to help develop that. And we're trying to keep people from hurting themselves. So we go through it with them. We'll help them with their business plan, and then we'll go with them right up to the SBA, and then they'll take it from there. And they are very confident if we give them to them that you've got something going, and they'll work with you. But we also, you know, we get people who will say, don't do it. Don't do it, because all you're going to do is lose your basic money and family money if you've got family money in it. So we say no. And we try and be fair. We listen. We try and listen and be positive with them. But if it's not going to be a good idea, we're going to tell them right off the bat, you need more experience in doing this. If you want to get in the restaurants, go work in one. If you want to build candlesticks, find out who's done it, and we'll work with them, with you, to get you to the point where you can make money doing it.
If you only want to be told the things you want to hear, don't come see SCORE, is what I'm hearing.
That's correct. Yeah, when that's something that we you know, if we're too honest, sometimes we get a bad report back. Can't help it. I mean, I had one person come to me a couple of years ago. It was a couple, and they said, we need a loan for a farm. I said, okay. I said, I can't get you a loan, but I'll try and find out where we can get one for you. And we discussed things for a while, and they left. They put a report in. Couldn't get us money, not happy. Well, that happens, you know.
Well, then I'm not happy with a lot of people.
Right.
You mentioned your Seattle chapter, and you talked about the continuing education, if you will. One of the things you sent to me in your bullet points that you wanted to talk about were the webinars. I mean, and you mentioned it earlier, almost daily?
Yes, yeah. We have one for a business plan. We have one for marketing. We have one for analyzing your business. I mean, there's all kinds of things, and they're inexpensive. Some are $50, some are $75. Some are less, but it's well worth it. You can, if you don't get it this month, they'll probably be on again next month. But you can keep in touch with us, and I try and send out to some of my clients what's going on for this month if they want to take some. But getting a good business plan is the first thing, because if you do a good business plan, you're going to find out right away if it's going to make you enough money to satisfy you. You know, you'll see. And I tell a person, develop a business plan with a volume that's high, and one that's slow, and one that's medium, and do all three. And if the high one shows a good return, let's go for it, because we can get there. But you know, you got to work with the people, and you got to help them, and you got to be positive with them.
You touched on it earlier, but I think it's worth repeating and stressing. We talk a lot about, in the context that we've been speaking, we've been talking a lot about people that are starting a new business, but really SCORE's services and advice and knowledge and wisdom, whatever you want to throw out there, is available to people in any stage of business.
Well, as I said, the All-American Marine is a multi-million-dollar business. We do a good service for them. We've had people come to us and say, you know, I'm at a standstill. I've reached a certain level and I want to go higher. What can I do? How do I expand? We'll bring them in, because I've been in that position myself, and say, okay, well, how are you trying to expand? What way are you going to go? And if I can't help them, I'll find somebody in the 50 states that's done it, and we'll work with them. And then it's a great thing to have the one score attitude that we have now. It's not just us, it's not just Seattle, it's everywhere. I've had people in the lobster business from Massachusetts contact me they wanted to go from lobsters into restaurants. I said, you know, I can help you from here, but I think I'm going to find somebody in Massachusetts that's closer. And I did. But somebody started with them from there, which was, if you can get close enough, it's even better, because you can do face-to-face. We have an office downtown at the Chase Bank on Cornwall, and we do, you know, 1 hour face-to-face with anybody that wants to come in and chat. If you have a business and you don't have anybody to talk to, which I found when I was in business by myself, who are you going to talk to? So you can come down with us and say, look, I've got a problem here. What can I do? And we'll try and help you. If I can't help you, I'm going to find somebody in your business within the 50 states that will work closely with you.
I've been thinking about how to carefully word this question. Actually, I've been thinking about it all morning, Bob.
Uh-oh.
But the face of business changes a lot.
Yes.
And from the time you first opened your own business till now, things are a lot different. But I have to believe core business principles a lot of times stay the same and stay relevant. However, things do change.
Yes.
How does core, with a number of your volunteers being of the more mature persuasion,
Yes.
how do you stay relevant?
Good question. I think we can do that, you know, if I can't come up with, you know, especially for marketing, like you're using computers now.
Yeah.
We didn't have a computer when I had business. I had an old machine that would run through the numbers for me. Now I can zip through it quickly. I've learned a little bit, but things are all the same. You got to look at a profit and loss sheet. Profit and loss sheet is the same now as it was in 1950. The dollars in, expenses out, what's left. Basically, you got to start from there, and then we can tune it in. You know, web marketing. I know nothing about it. If anything, I'm going to find somebody that's done it. We have somebody in our office that has. As a matter of fact, one of the principals now has done that. Has had his own IT business. So we're always up to date, as you know, with anything you want to do, because the old ways are still the same ways. Really, when you come right down to it, it's changed a lot. As a restaurant, for one, my gosh, I wouldn't want to open up a restaurant. Look at what happened the last 2 years. You know, I mean, they had to pivot, and a lot of them did very well. They locked the doors and did takeout. And some said, "I'm staying this way. I'm making more money." That's true.
And actually, what you just described to me is a good business principle, and that is, you're not going to know how to do anything, or everything, I should say. And if you don't, find somebody that does, put your trust in them, and let them do what they know how to do.
Correct. When I first went into my own business, I had my restaurant, my coffee urn something happened to it. When I was with Stouffer's, well, I just get on the phone, "Hey, come down and fix my coffee urn." I got on the phone and said, "I'm going to have to take care of that." I have nobody to call. So I did call. Of course, I got a repairman that worked with coffee urns. But that's the thing you learn, yes. You know, and that's why I'm saying a small business, if you need somebody to talk to, just to say, "I've got a small problem here. Where do I go to get this taken care of?" We can help. If I can't help you, I will find somebody in the 50 states that will help you. I'll try and find somebody local first.
So the chapters work. They work together then.
It's called One Score.
Yeah, nice.
You know, now
like
we're pushing that just recently, and it's worked, because we've had people come to us that were interested in a certain thing. It was a legal problem. It was a specific legal problem, and we found somebody in Seattle that could handle the person here. And we put them in direct contact with them, and they took care of it for them.
We could sit here and probably talk for a good part of the day about SCORE, but let's get to the point of how people get in touch with you. If somebody's interested in SCORE services.
Well, we've got a website, Bellingham SCORE, www.bellinghamscore.com, and you can get there, and right on the site it says find a mentor. You can put in what you want and hit the button. If you just put SCORE in, you're going to get help on the internet. Just Google SCORE. Yep. Simplest thing in the world. And locally, as I said, these people from Massachusetts wanted to do something. I put them back in touch with somebody in Massachusetts to help them right there. We do a lot of that. But if, you know, I'm on the national website for restaurants, and there are other people too. My background is specific, so if they want to talk to me, they can get to me. And if I can't help them, I'll look within our group and find somebody that's in the business or has done some business similar. Like presently, we have one person that's developing a food truck webinar. So a lot of people want to go into food trucks. Mm-hmm. It's fairly inexpensive. The truck is not. The first thing we say is, look for a used one. Don't buy new if you can help. And then we'll put them in touch with this group and get them going. 300
chapters in 50 states. Chances are there's somebody that has some experience in
There's 10,000 volunteers.
What's the most unique business situation you've ever had to deal with? I'm putting you on the spot here.
It's hard to... Well, we've got one gal that she called herself Apple because I couldn't pronounce her name. She's Vietnamese. She came and said, I want to open up a restaurant. I said, you got any background? Well, my family's... I said, okay. And I said, let's do a business plan. We worked together. Another volunteer and I worked with her. She found a spot in Linden. She asked us to look at it. We looked at it. She says, what do I do now? She says, I want to go. I says, get the health department in. They got the health department in. She's been in business now for 4 years in Linden. Right doing on. Very well. But the hardest one, I can't really think of anything that's been hard to do, because if I couldn't handle it, I say, whoop, give it to so-and-so.
And that's the beauty of
SCORE.
Yeah,
that's what I like about it. You know, if there are some things that throw you a curveball. Like somebody comes to me, I need to get a patent. A patent? I haven't got a clue. I call up Don, the volunteer that does patents. Get over here, help this guy.
I've got a guy.
Yep, yep.
Bob, this has been a pleasure. BellinghamScore.com, again, is the best way to get this process started if you're interested in learning more.
You bet. And we can help you.
All right. That's Bob George with SCORE, and they are our featured member in this week's Discover Thursday. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Sasha.